And we welcome you into the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show as Penn State football returns to Beaver Stadium on Saturday for a noon kickoff against the Indiana Hoosiers to continue Big Ten play. Brian Tripp, delighted to be with you once again here tonight. Head coach James Franklin, his weekly Wednesday comments coming up in just a moment. Jason Kabinda, former Nittany Lion linebacker, current Detroit Lion, will join us to break down Penn State's game against Ohio State and a whole lot more. And we'll also talk to kicker Alex Felkins and defensive tackle Zane Durant on our set tonight. But again, coming up, that matchup on Saturday, Penn State and Indiana. The Nittany Lions ranked 10th nationally, 6-1 on the year. Indiana fell to Rutgers last time out, 31-14, posting 153 rushing yards in that game. So probably a good thing we're going to talk to Zane Durant tonight. That Nittany Lion run defense has been so good. Here's head coach James Franklin.
Vocally say, hey, let's get out of this slump. Let's make sure it doesn't carry over this week.
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe it the way you just did, but yeah, the guys have been great. The coaches have been great. We're on to the next game and the next opponent, but it's one game. I don't know if I would describe it the way you just did.
The approach at left guard last Saturday was all Benga. Was that about what JB was coming off of, or what was that about Benga establishing himself?
Yeah, obviously with JB coming off an injury, didn't get a ton of reps during the week. He was available to play. But we kind of took it as more of like an emergency. If somebody had gotten hurt, then he would have went in the game. But based on reps between him and the coaches, we just felt like the amount of time that JB put during the week was the better option. But he's fully available for this week.
Through 7 games, you guys currently lead the Big Ten in yards per carry allowed. It also looks like teams aren't rushing as much on you. Why do you think that is, and how much of that is a testament to what Deion's done?
Yards per carry allowed against our defense?
At least yards per carry allowed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Deion's done a good job. I think it's a combination of a couple things, right? It's how well we're playing on defense. I also think there's been a number of games where I think we've talked about earlier in the week about the stats can be skewed sometimes because if you get up by a significant lead, people feel like they have to throw it to get back in the game. So I think it's a combination of how some of the games have played out, but also how well we're playing on defense and specifically the defensive line.
James, how have you seen Drew respond over the last few days, given Saturday was his first loss as a starter?
Yeah, good. I mean, he puts a ton into this. As you guys mentioned, he was pretty upset after the game, which a lot of people were. But has moved on. I think for a lot of us, when that next opponent comes out and that next game plan comes and the film and the next challenge and the next opportunity, that helps because it allows you to pour all your energy into that next battle, that next challenge.
James, is there anything you're able to update us on regarding Chop and Amin? And beyond that, where are you guys depth-wise at that position? It looked like you were able to play a lot of players in the first half of the season. How much is that going to help you regardless of what happens there?
Yeah, Amin, it's too early to tell. I think Amin could be a little bit like JB. It'll be a game time decision. And then even then, depending on how much work he got during the week, will still be a decision that needs to be decision that needs to be made. I think a little bit, too, is how veteran of a player is it in terms of how much practice time they miss and how much football they've played here. That plays a part into it as well. But we have played a ton of guys at defensive end. There's also a young guy that we've been excited about who's coming on is Jameel Lyons. So that plays a part in it as well. And with Chop, we hope to get him back sooner rather than later, but I don't have any of that information right now. Did you have something else?
No, that was
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. like you threw your voice.
The feedback on Jamil has been pretty positive from the staff and teammates going back to August. Is he a guy that if the depth chart wasn't as built up as it was at defensive end, you may have felt comfortable playing him a little bit earlier this season, more extensively?
Yeah, I think I made a comment like that. There's some positions and some guys that I think would have played. I think that's a good example with Jamil. I think there's also part of it too with new players, whether they're high school or transfer players. Are you playing them in certain packages, or are they ready to handle all of it? And I think with Jamil early on, it was like we're going to use him in certain packages, but not all of it. But as the season goes on, you hope that you're at a point at this stage that he can handle more. So obviously this week has been great work for him today and yesterday. We still got Thursday, we still got Friday, but hopefully he'll have an opportunity to play on Saturday and take advantage of it. I think you guys have seen he's made some flashes in the games he has played in, and then same thing in practice. So there's excitement about him.
So building on the question about Drew, it was emotional for a lot of the players after the game on Saturday. This is not your first rodeo with the Mother roster. How do you feel the players have responded this week from a mental standpoint?
Yeah, I think good. I mean, to be honest with you, we've had discussions about moving the press conference to Monday for a little bit of that reason, so we can move on and not keep doing this, not keep going back and talking about it. I get that you guys ask the questions, but for us, one of the ways to move on is to stop talking about it. And the hard part is you guys want to talk about it, which I get it. I totally get it. But it's kind of sending mixed messages, right? The best way to move on is to focus on the next opponent, learn from it, which we did on Saturday night, which we did on all day Sunday. But then it's time to move on to the next opponent, learn the lessons from the game, make the corrections, and then pour all of our energy into finding a way to get a win against Indiana and playing well so we can build that confidence and take it, for the rest of the season.
Talk about moving forward. I wondered what you've learned over the course of your career about what you think you know about your team and its ability to surprise you at unexpected moments, and how you sort of reconcile those two things as you try and lead a team through the season.
Yeah, I think it's hard because although you learn lessons throughout the process and throughout your career, each team kind of is their own team. As was one of the things we talked about last week is, that was this team's first time playing those guys. This team, the actual team, this locker room, the coaching staff, and really those things that had happened before, positive or negative, they don't really impact these guys in this locker room. So, for us, although we've learned lessons, a lot of these guys, it was their first time. It was their first time going through it, or the first time at the shoe, or whatever it may be. But I do think you see some guys step up in those moments, those games on the road against challenging opponents, or it's from a leadership standpoint in the locker room at halftime, or during the game, or after the game. I think one of the other things that can be challenging in an emotional locker room at times is I think you can make the mistake that you expect everybody to, I don't know if grieve is the right word, but for everybody to grieve the same way you grieve, and people handle those things differently. You have to be careful with that. But again, overall, I've been pleased with how the guys have handled it, moved on. But we got to go take our frustrations out on this next opponent.
Hey, James, yesterday you said something that I don't think we've ever heard you say before. You said, I think in the last question, you said you were thinking ahead of time what you were going to say after the game. Is that an anomaly, or do you always do that? Because, you remember what you said.
Yeah, no, I think what I was trying to talk about is the confidence that we had going into that game, and I knew the questions that were going to come based on the record. So there was some things that I wanted to say, and it was going to be an opportunity, and that was part of my process of kind of visualizing the success that we were going to have, and then how we were going to handle it. So yeah, I think that's a fair interpretation of what you're saying. But for me, it was the confidence that we had. And it was, for me specifically, not just the program, of visualizing, walking into that media session after the game, and maybe not answer as many tough questions as I had in the past.
James, Riley Thompson is a guy that comes from that Australian lineage of punters. What has he meant to the special teams unit, and how has he progressed over the course of this year?
Yeah, he's done a nice job, and I think for a lot of these guys, whether they're transfers or freshmen, we're kind of getting at that point of the season where they've kind of adjusted. They know what to expect. I think they're pretty comfortable, and I think right now, he's doing some really nice things, and I've seen our special teams as a group, really improve over the last couple of weeks, and I think typically special teams are highly driven by the specialists. If you're snapper, punter, kicker, holder, those guys are high-level guys, then you got a chance to be successful, especially with the depth that we have at other positions. So I think as those guys have gotten more comfortable in their roles and have been more consistent, our special teams have improved. So he's one of those guys that I think is really comfortable now in how we do things and how we operate, and doing some nice things.
James, how have you seen Mike Yurcich kind of handle this week? 'Cause obviously you guys have been together for a while, but obviously there's been a lot of questions, a lot of things from the fans about Mike this week. How have you seen him kind of handle that?
Well, I think, number one, it's challenging. It's challenging on all of us. And, one of the things that we try to do, the way we operate, is try to eliminate as many distractions as we possibly can. So it's not always fun for me to come to the press conference, but it allows the rest of the staff to focus on the job at hand, and moving on. Now, are we completely in a submarine? No. But, I think on Sunday, just like a lot of people, we were in there and there was tough film sessions, tough conversations, a lot of transparency, a lot of honesty, really good discussion from the entire staff. And that is hard to hear sometimes, but is also needed. So it was a challenging night, and it was a challenging next day. And again, like I've mentioned before, you kind of move on. But I do think it's helpful that you're able to move on. Like, that's one of the things about being a head coach. You gotta, like that, leaving the submarine and walking over to the press conference, that I know the questions that are coming. Not the funnest part of my week, but that's the job. That's the job. And the way we have it set up, it allows the assistants and coordinators to focus on the job at hand and move on without some of those responsibilities.
James, with the knowledge that you're looking for efficiency this year for your passing game, how far do you think you are off from where you want to be, if at all?
Yeah, we're behind. We're behind in the passing game. I think we've shown some flashes. I think Trey's injury, when we didn't have a whole lot of proven guys before that. I think some guys that have kind of come in have transitioned a little bit slower than we had hoped. But this is an opportunity to take a step this week and build confidence moving forward. I think there's guys in that room that have the ability to do the job and do the job at a high level, but it's about consistency physically, but it's also consistently mentally. Sometimes you guys ask questions, and it's hard because as the head coach, I know you guys are just asking the questions that you have to ask, but if I don't answer them correctly, they can be divisive. They can be divisive for the coaches and the players. They can be divisive. A lot of times, as we all learned, people only hear my answer. They don't hear the question. I don't want to ever say anything that's divisive between the offense and the defense, or a position group feeling like they're being called out. We do those things behind closed doors, but but the reality is, there's room for growth there, and there's some times where things happen where you guys don't know about, where a guy runs the wrong route or the wrong assignment. I'm not going to come out and say those things, or on the offensive line or defensive line, but those things happen. And those things may limit, playing time or opportunities, but I'm not going to come in the press conference and necessarily say that when it doesn't necessarily make sense to you guys. Does that make sense? That's the challenge as the head coach. It's in the press conferences, how do I answer your questions so you guys feel like I'm giving you what you need to do your jobs, but not do anything that's going to cause issues in my locker room? And that's literally the balance constantly. How can I answer your questions? But most of your questions put me in that position. So that's the challenge.
The Wednesday address from head coach James Franklin ahead of 10th-ranked Penn State and Indiana. Noon on Saturday, back inside Beaver Stadium. Can't wait to get back inside Beaver Stadium. See 107K plus. Fill those seats as the Nittany Lions and Hoosiers meet for a Military Appreciation Day. Welcome, everyone, back to our set here live on a gorgeous, an absolutely gorgeous night here on the Lasch patio. And we're joined by kicker Alex Felkins to kick off our interviews here on the patio tonight. You and I were just joking. What a great night to kick out here on the practice fields.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially for the middle of October, you really can't ask for any better weather than we got tonight. So it's nice to enjoy those days.
Yeah, no doubt about that. This is absolutely fantastic. It's supposed to fans, just it's supposed to continue over into Saturday. Just come on out, fill those stands again on Saturday. And I talk about the fans and playing at Beaver Stadium after 4 years at Columbia, the opportunity to come here to Penn State. How has it lived up to and perhaps even exceeded the expectations for you?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're not at Penn State, if you're involved in college football in any way, everyone knows about the environment here playing at Beaver Stadium, and it definitely lived up to the expectations, especially that first game with the helmet stripe. I mean, it was quite a lot of fun. And I'm really grateful and blessed to be able to go out there every week and play in front of our fans.
All right, what's the pressure situation here as you're getting lined up? They're your own fans, but kicking in front of 110,000 people. How would you describe it for me, Alex?
I mean, that clip specifically, and honestly, on most of the other ones, I kind of go into a little bit of a blackout mode. Like that one, the only thing I remember is watching the ball go through. The first one, the 46, I just remember aiming a little right because the wind was going right to left, and I think I played the ball pretty well because it snuck right in there. But yeah, it's kind of a blackout mode every time I go in there.
Really interesting, though. You talk about the wind. What is your pregame routine to get a feel, no matter whether it's here at Beaver Stadium or on the road, what the conditions are on game day? Take us behind the scenes here of a special teamer's mindset.
Yeah, so especially in the Big Ten, you're going to deal with a lot of adverse weather conditions every week. So a really big part of my pregame is getting kicks on both sides of the field, getting a sense for how the wind's changing, especially throughout the game. If it's swirling, it could change directions on both sides. So anytime we have a team timeout or a media timeout, I'll try to go out on the field and kind of get a sense for how it's moving. Especially if it's an away game, I definitely try to watch the other kickers warm up because they know how to play their ball in their home stadium. So that's a really important part for me.
Coach was just talking about the growth of the special teams. How do you feel like your special teams have grown throughout the course of the season? And again, that carries so many different facets there, from kickoffs to punt, and I know you're only involved in some of it. But as a group, how do you feel like your special teams have grown?
Yeah, so in the special room specifically, ever since I got here, I think we've had a bunch of talent, and we've just had to work to capitalize on that as much as possible. I think especially in the past few weeks, everyone has seen we've really kind of grown into ourselves a little bit. I think we're all kicking, punting, and snapping with a lot of confidence right now. And I mean, we're playing well and doing our best to come through for the team whenever we need to.
You mentioned that that's a very talented room, and obviously, Sander and the whole group that you have at kicker, everyone that can punt and kick off, and then to see Daquan run a couple of punts back for a touchdown. That'd be an exciting moment for your room.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's almost immediately into that blackout mode again because I got to go out there and kick an extra point. But it's pretty cool to see, kind of run on the field and on the sideline, see Coach Collins hugging everyone and stuff. I mean, it's cool to see all the work we put on special teams pay off.
You got your psych degree at Columbia. You come here, you're working on your MBA right now. Why did you want to come to Penn State? Number one, obviously, the athletic element of it, but the academic component as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Smeal College of Business is a pretty well-renowned business school within America, and just the networking connection opportunities I had coming here, especially being in the MBA program, was huge, and also being able to complete that degree in 1 year as opposed to a lot of normal 2-year MBA programs. It'll be nice because I only have 1 year of football here, so I get to finish that degree and finish my football career at the same time.
And hopefully maybe a long football career after this. But when football is done, what's on the horizon for you?
I don't know, maybe something finance related, probably for the beginning of my career. Eventually I kind of want to start my own thing. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs, so I think I have a little bit of an entrepreneurial mindset, and I definitely want to be able to have more control over my own daily life somewhere down the road. So.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yes, sir.
We're watching you practice, wrapping up practice, I just got the sense from watching from up here on the patio how hungry this group is. What's the hunger level? How excited are you guys to have an opportunity to get right back out there again on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously no one likes to lose, right? But the good thing about that is we still have so much to play for.
Yeah.
Like, our season isn't anywhere close to being done. We could get to where we want to go, where we've been saying we wanted to go since the season started if we just play the rest of the season to the best of our ability. And I think we've seen throughout this week of practice and how our team is approaching meetings and lifts and practices that we are really hungry to get back on the field, and I think we're going to show that on Saturday.
Well, Alex, I know they sometimes say, and I'm sure you've heard the old cliche about specialists before. I've really enjoyed this one tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much. And again, great weather conditions for
Yes,
this
sir.
weekend. I know you're ready for no matter what Mother Nature throws at you, but looks like 75, sunny on
Absolutely.
Saturday.
Can't complain.
Alex Falcon's joining us here live on our set here on the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show. Coming up,
Thank you.
our game week schedule on Tuesday, Coach's press conference. Wednesday, the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show. And then coming up tomorrow, from the Field, Burger, and Tap, the Penn State Coaches Show featuring head coach James Franklin. Then there is a look at your game day schedule for Saturday. The parking lot's open at 7 a.m., block party at 8 a.m., one-way traffic pattern. Make sure you're in the lots, get there, team arrival, the stadium gates open, and of course, all the great stuff that's going on game day at Beaver Stadium as the Nittany Lions get set to take on the Indiana Hoosiers at Beaver Stadium on Saturday. So we heard from the specialist Alex Falcons. He's done a great job this year for the Nittany Lions. Oh, and there is a look live right now from Beaver Stadium. It is going to be rocking again. Supposed to be great weather on Saturday for the Lions and the Hoosiers. Military Appreciation Day as well. And we're joined by sophomore defensive lineman Zane Durant here on our set. And Zane, coach, during his press conference, the first question he was asked today was about that run defense. And obviously your defense has done an excellent job overall. But in the running game alone, 6 straight games where the opponent has had less than 100 yards. Where do you feel like your defense is excelling in that area specifically right now?
I just say our mindset, attacking the run game, so we take pride in that. We feel like it's disrespect if somebody can run the ball through us down the middle or outside of our defense at all. So we use that as a chip on our shoulder.
Well, I know the defense has done a great job to set the tone all season long. How do you feel like, especially up front in a physical game? You know, we've seen those physical games. You're going to have that each and every week in the Big Ten. You're able to do that as a defense.
Yeah, we just fly around and have fun with it. I mean, we all dogs at the end of the day, so we all hungry to go make a play. So we just go hard and be physical and play fast.
When you come into a program, and we've heard so much about the mindset of the defense, is that attack-first mentality that starts with Coach Franklin, but then on down to Coach Diaz and everyone else that you're working with on a day-to-day basis. How do you start to ingratiate yourself and become almost a part of that mindset? Because I know as a football player, you have that hunger, you want to attack out there on the field, but how do you really buy into that identity that a program has? Because it seems like this defense has been bought in from the very beginning, day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's all we surrounded around. So from the upperclassmen, PJ last year, they stepped that into us, the coaching staff. So every day, that's just something that we do. And then over time, the more you do something, it becomes a habit. So it's just been a habit for us on defense.
Who's been the most influential to you as you develop and grow as a football player?
This year?
I would say not only this year, but throughout maybe your 2 years here at Penn State.
Okay, I'll say PJ and Hakeem Beamon.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys took me under the wing. Me coming from Florida, I didn't really know too many guys.
Yep.
I met those 2 guys first. They introduced themselves, and they just took me under the wing, showed me the ropes, and showed me what State College is really about.
What have you enjoyed about playing for Coach Barnes this year?
I love it a lot. The experience that I had, the different techniques that I learned, him playing DM, so he teaching me stuff that the tackles and the O-line would learn and usually know, so that's helping me play the game.
Where do you feel like your biggest strides have been made from your freshman year to your sophomore year?
In the run game, definitely in the run game.
So I was on to something when I started with that tonight.
Yeah. The run game, definitely, man. I've been more physical, more violent in the run game.
Well, we're seeing you getting after the quarterback here. That's that big sack down around the goal line on a third down to force a fourth down against Northwestern. Here you are in that run game, stacking up the line of scrimmage against West Virginia. When you say you've made improvements in the run game, what areas specifically did you focus on to make sure you're making those strides?
I just say reading the lineman and trying to get to know the offensive side of the ball. So me knowing the other side of the ball has helped me recognize plays earlier and just kind of give me the edge, like to make a play before it happens.
What is the biggest transition going from high school ball to college ball?
Yeah, the playbooks and the technique definitely is. High school, you're not really learned too many techniques, so you just go out there and you're really playing free ball. And then also the plays in college is way different from high school, so yeah.
How much are you looking forward to getting back out there on the field right again on Saturday?
Oh, man, we got a lot to prove. So, yeah, we ready to get out there. show what we really made of and bounce back.
We just saw the shot of Beaver Stadium before. What's the best part of playing inside that stadium with these crazy Penn State fans?
Yeah, the fans, most definitely, man. They bring the energy, get everybody ready to play.
How do you feed off that as a defense? And obviously with all that noise, right? Every time everyone talks about the noise, it's how's an offense going to handle it? What do you have to do as a defender, playing on the defensive side, when you have all that noise going on to make sure you have your calls right?
Yeah. It's easy because our defense, we communicate a lot. So if somebody don't hear it, we over-communicate just in case they didn't hear it. And if you heard it, you're going to hear it again, just so make sure you know it. And then that just give us the juice to go play fast and physical.
Zane, it was fun watching those highlights. It's been fun watching you play all year long. Congrats on a great season so far. We look forward to seeing so much more.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Zane Durant joining us here live on our set on the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show. Appreciate his time here tonight. We gave you that game week schedule. Here is the game day schedule once again for the Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers. Coming up Saturday, a noon kickoff. It all starts, parking lots open at 7 a.m. The block party at 8 a.m. One-way traffic pattern at 9:30. Team arrival, the Blue Band March, tailgate show, on-field pregame. Make sure you're in Beaver Stadium early. Make sure you're there loud and proud. And then after the game, we'll have coverage as well as Penn State gets set to take on Indiana on Military Appreciation Day. And speaking of Military Appreciation Day, the team will be wearing some exclusive merchandise on the field, including these hats from Fanatics fans. You can go to gopsusports.com and you can get these same hats that the team is going to be wearing for Military Appreciation Day on Saturday. You can look like a Nittany Lion. They'll be wearing this great gear. And again, you can get that gear fast. You can get it. You can wear it. And again, represent Penn State and represent and salute all of those who have served our country with our Military Appreciation Day game coming up on Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Go to gopsusports.com and you can pick up a hat of your own. So let's dive into this matchup a little bit more. Nittany Lions and Hoosiers are players to watch for Penn State this week. And we start on the offensive side of the football. Rutgers last week against Indiana had 276 rushing yards and two players go over 100 yards rushing in that game against the Hoosiers. So the two we'll focus on, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen for Penn State, combined 811 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns this season, 21 receptions as well. I think we're going to hear about that. Trying to find a way to get them the ball, get the ball in their hands in space, and obviously they have that physical element of their run game as well. They've done such a good job of getting Penn State into first and second down situations where they're getting into those third and manageables all year long, those dirty yards, and there's Singleton breaking one for 20 yards last weekend against the Buckeyes. Moving on, the tight ends, Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson. Third down, red zone big targets for Drew Aller-Johnson, second on the team with 18 receptions this year, 206 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Tyler Warren, third on the team with 17 receptions, 140 yards, and 5 touchdowns. 7 TDs combined. And look at Johnson, that athleticism. Man, these guys are good. They can really fly. Those are players to watch on the offensive side of the football for Penn State. Then on defense, trying to get after that quarterback for Indiana, and they've done it all year long, living in the backfield. We could list a plethora of players, but Adisa Isaac matched up against a really young Indiana offensive line. 16 tackles, 9.5 of those tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries. Adisa Isaac, defensive end, one of our players to watch this week for Penn State going into this matchup with the Hoosiers. And now for Indiana. Who are we watching? Jalen Lucas. This guy is dangerous. He's dangerous as a running back, as a receiver out of the backfield, wherever they line him up, and also on special teams. Want to find a way to contain number 12 against the Hoosiers this weekend. And then a couple of guys on the defensive side of the football. 44, Aaron Casey, team leading 59 tackles this season, ranked second in the Big Ten in tackles for loss as well. And then Andre Carter, 10th in the Big Ten with 21 total pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. So those are players to watch for Penn State and Indiana. Well, I know on Sunday I was watching the Nittany Lions in the pros. Let's look at the latest highlights from this past week in the NFL.
This week in the NFL, running back Saquon Barkley helped the Giants knock off the Commanders with 77 rushing yards and 3 catches for 41 yards and this touchdown. Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin has 20 receptions over his last 3 games, including 6 catches for 66 yards and this 33-yard grab against the Falcons. Finally, the game-winning touchdown and a gritty from Patriots tight end Mike Gesicki as New England knocks off Buffalo on Sunday.
our Nittany Lions in the NFL, and now we're joined by our NFLer and former Nittany Lion linebacker, Jason Kabita. Jason, before I even get into the current Penn State football team, what are your thoughts when you see Mike Gesicki celebrate in the end zone like that? Can you hit the gritty? What would your touchdown celebration be?
His gritty is just an abomination, man. That's about all I can say on Mike's gritty. It's my eyes roll every time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Hey, let's dive into Penn State coming home to take on Indiana noon on Saturday. For the first time this year, Jason, Penn State's facing and has to handle a little bit of adversity. You've been through big games before where your team's come up with the victory. You've been in big games before where your teams come up a little bit short. What's important about the way they bounce back and handle that adversity, not only on the field on Saturday, but I think these days leading up to the game?
I think it's important for a team. I still remember when we had our Michigan loss. That was my junior year. We actually literally went outside and buried the tape. We watched it, we made our corrections, and we buried it. Because at the end of the day, this is a long season, and you got to be able to put it behind you. You got to be able to focus on the next one. So I already know Coach Franklin has these guys ready and focused for this next game coming up against Indiana. And at the end of the day, that's what you got to do in this league.
Yeah, and sometimes, Jason, I know that you never want to lose a football game, but losses can help reinforce something that a coach is saying. And look, this is still a really young team, a couple of sophomore running backs and sophomores on the defensive side of the football that are playing really big roles. And, a quarterback who just made his 7th career start. So what is important to learn from that experience against Ohio State?
I think the biggest thing is, and Coach Franklin really touched on it during his interview, is the fact that a lot of these young guys have never even played that game before. They haven't been to the shoe. They don't know what it's like. So, all that experience is super important for their development and how they got to attack it the next time. I know they're going to learn from this. I know they're going to go and make the corrections that they need to make. I think going into this week, it's about, okay, let's get back to showing who we are again. Because at the end of the day, they've handled these opponents week in and week out. I think the confidence that we're a very good team has gone absolutely nowhere. That was a good Ohio State team.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, bounce back and get a big win this week. It's the type of win that when you put on that tape, you feel good about how you played.
Yeah, no doubt. Looking forward to that on Saturday against Indiana. I know one of the things that you've been impressed with all season long, and look, you never want to see a guy go down, especially a key guy like Chop Robinson on defense. But I thought we talked about the first 2 weeks we've had you on this show, the depth of that defense, that attack-first mentality. We just heard from Zane talking about that as well. Deny Dennis Sutton and Adisa Isaac, the way they've attacked not only the quarterback but running backs, that run game plays on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. I was so impressed with their performance against Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those guys are going to have to step up in more ways than one. Obviously, the production is going to be, a big to replace and fill that void of what Chop was doing for this defense. But not only just that, but you got to also understand that, Chop is a leader in that locker room, and whatever, leadership he brought, whether it's making certain calls before the plays, there has to be somebody else who steps up and takes that responsibility, because at the end of the day, in this business, it's the next man up. And that's just how we operate. So you got to be able to take responsibility for what those guys did and apply it next game.
Well, I love one thing that we talked about already, and that's talking about learning from that experience. And look, you already touched on it. The mentality of this team is they're confident because they are a team that's had a ton of success so far this season. In the first 6 games of the year, they scored 30 or more points. I think this offense is hungry to get an opportunity to get right back out there. And Jason, the most important thing for the offense is getting into third and manageable situations by being effective and efficient on first and second down. And then on third down, you'll have an opportunity to keep drives alive. I think it's getting back to that identity on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think last week we saw, a lot of runs that were just really stagnant runs. And you saw a lot of third downs last week that were just third and longs. And they were in difficult situations trying to get off the field. Obviously, we had a terrible third down conversion rate last week. So I think in order to get back to our identity, it's being efficient in the run game, being able to very consistently get 4 or 5 yards a pop and get those explosive runs going, get Katron Allen going, get Nick Singleton going. So that's going to be important. And I think the biggest part of that is going to be this offensive line playing together, making the right calls, making the right calls, getting their combo blocks and getting up to that second level and letting these guys have some lanes to run.
We're seeing some highlights here, Trey Potts right there, but of Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. When this offense is at its best, the tight end's involved as well, as you see a throw from Drew Aller to Theo Johnson for a touchdown there. Here's another touchdown pass, Khalil Dinkins, another tight end. But when those running backs are going, what makes Nicholas Singleton, what makes Katron Allen, what makes that duo so good?
I mean, they have different running styles, but you can tell both of those backs run with tenacity. I mean, you watch Katron run. I mean, the toughness. He's always leaning forward, always getting those extra yards every single time. That's one of those things that you really want to see out of a running back. And then when you look at Nick Singleton, I think the biggest thing that pops off the film when I watch him play is his speed. The dude has game-breaking speed, the type of speed where you give him a seam at the 1 yard line, he could take it 99 to the house. So I'm expecting big things from them out of this game, a lot of explosive runs, and I'm looking for Coach Franklin to really feed these guys.
Two guys that I know you would love to block for. Let's go into your keys to the game for this week's matchup against Indiana. In Indiana, again, you want to make that quarterback uncomfortable. That's the first key to this game, Jason, making sure that defensive line, those defensive ends that we talked about, that I talked about in my players to watch, trying to make the quarterback uncomfortable for Indiana.
Yeah, obviously, this Indiana football team came in with a lot of question marks at quarterback between Traven Jackson, whether Brendan Sorsby was going to be the starter. They've had some switches this year even, and Brendan Sorsby doesn't have a lot of starts under his belt. Coming into a Beaver Stadium, it's going to be important that we make him feel uncomfortable. We don't give him a chance to breathe back there and be a game manager and allow these receivers and running backs, which are really good skill positions for this Indiana team, to take over the game. We can't allow it.
All right, key number 2 for Jason for this week's game. Find different ways to get Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton the football. We talked about how dangerous they are. I gave the numbers on their rushing stats and their receiving stats moments ago. Jason, the key is to get these guys the football.
Yeah, I mean, it is obvious that this Penn State offense is at its best when it's running the ball really well. So, I felt like last week we didn't do a good enough a job of finding different ways to get them the ball, whether that's in the screen game, whether that's going empty, having Nick Singleton running routes, those types of things. I would love to see that happen this week, especially against an Indiana team that you look at and feel that, man for man, you're the better team. So you got a little bit of wiggle room to experiment here on offense.
Yeah, Indiana struggled against Rutgers containing the run last week. Rutgers put up 276 yards on the ground, a couple of players with more than 100 yards in that game. And Jason's third key to the game this week, play with a sense of urgency, take the air out of them quickly. And Jason, that all comes back to getting that fast start.
Yeah, I mean, you watched that Michigan game earlier in the year, and, they came out the second half and didn't even look like they wanted to play. I truly feel like this is the type of team that we can break, whose morale heading into halftime can be broken, and we can make them not want to come back out the second half. So I think it's going to be important for us to start off fast, dominate up front, because I feel like we have the advantage on both sides of the ball, especially defensively. They have a young offensive line. We're going to be able to get, to the quarterback. Manny Diaz has plenty of blitzes and pressure looks, I'm sure, for this team to have them thinking. So I'm excited to see the way they play and the sense of urgency they decide to play with this week.
Jason, great stuff as always. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jason Kabinda, former Nittany Lion, joining us here on the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show. Not only football at home on Saturday against Indiana, men's soccer actually in action right now. We're going to take a live peek in just a moment. Men's hockey coming up on Thursday and Friday against Alaska, Anchorage, 7 o'clock at Pagula Ice Arena. Women's golf competing this weekend. Field hockey at Indiana, just a huge win. Congratulations to Lisa Love-Bervinchak and her team on senior day against 5th-ranked Iowa. Big upset on Sunday. Congrats on that win. Women's volleyball rolling right now. Friday at Michigan, Saturday at Michigan State. Always a tough trip. Women's hockey back in action, still on the road. They're at Syracuse. And then women's soccer Big Ten tournament underway. That coming up at 1 o'clock on Sunday. You can catch that action and so many Penn State sports at home and on the road on Big Ten Plus. Speaking of Big Ten Plus, right now we're at the half. Penn State men's soccer taking on Detroit Mercy in the home finale, the regular season home finale tonight. And as you can see, it's a 1-0 lead for the Nittany Lions over at Jeffrey Field. And what's a gorgeous night for soccer. But right now they are at the half, and Jeff Cook's team ramping up, getting ready for that postseason. They'll be on the road to wrap up the regular season, as we just saw coming up this weekend. But a 1-0 score for the Penn State men's soccer team. You can catch that action live on Big Ten Plus. We ask you to stick with us. We promise we'll get you to that if you flip on over to there before the half comes back for half number 2 in the final 45 on the pitch from Jeffrey Field. Well, women's basketball season about set to get underway. Carolyn Keeger and the Penn State Lady Lions 2 weeks from yesterday. Bucknell, November 7th at the Bryce Jordan Center. They'll kick off a very challenging non-conference and conference slate in women's basketball. Can't wait to see this group of Lady Lions start a new season. And our Alyssa Wagner was out at the Bryce Jordan Center yesterday for the team's media day to preview the 2023-2024 season.
The Penn State Lady Lions are hungry to get back out on the court for the 2023 to 2024 season.
Our team is fired up. and we're ready to put this program back on the map. We believe this team, this year, is where we make our presence felt again in the Big Ten.
In the offseason, Coach Keeger and her staff added 5 new players from the transfer portal.
I'm sure you've been getting this all day, but what made you want to come to Penn State?
I would definitely just say the atmosphere and, the vibe that I got from the coaches. I was definitely looking for a program that was going to, welcome me with open arms and allow me to be who I am on and off the court.
I've known Keeks for a long time. I've been telling everyone that she was actually the first coach who believed in me and kind of saw who I was as a person, as a player. I started with her at Marquette before she came here. And when she came here, she kind of left me hanging dry. We always joke about that.
And on top of that, 2 teammates have reunited once again.
You and Kylie grew up in the same hometown, played for rival schools, but also on the same AAU team. What is it like to be back on the court with her?
I mean, it's something special. I don't think everyone in the college game can say that they're on the same team as someone who you grew up with.
Being back on the court with Mariah, I mean, we always had chemistry on the floor. So just being back on the floor with her is amazing, and I can't wait to get this year started.
With 5 key players returning from last year, a lot of work was put in during the offseason.
I think the biggest change is just denying every pass. Getting up 94 feet is something that we did last year, but just making sure that we harp on it this year and getting in the passing lanes on every pass.
I feel like our defense is more communicative. We're just in sync with each other, and we trust each other way more on defensive rotations. So, I mean, that's huge.
And after a season-ending injury last year, guard Allie Campbell is ready to make her comeback.
I'm just super excited again. These past 2 years haven't been what I thought they'd be, but I'm finally excited to just help this team win and do whatever it takes to again, put wins on the board and just fill these stands again.
The season starts on November 7th, and the Lady Lions will host Bucknell on Big Ten+.
We have a chip on our shoulder, and a chip to prove to ourselves, our fans, and the country that we belong amongst the nation's best.
I'm Alyssa Wagner with Go PSU Sports.
Great stuff, Alyssa. Great coverage from Women's Basketball Media Day. Yesterday, we had our live show at Men's and Women's Basketball Media Days the last 2 days. Those are archived if you want to go back and check that out. Ross Woomer did a great job producing those. Speaking of basketball, men's basketball opening up 2 weeks from Monday. Delaware State, November 6th, coming up at the BJC. The first 4 games are all at home, so a great chance to check out Mike Rhodes and his team as they kick off a new era of Penn State basketball. Bold, different, and aggressive. We're going to hear about that. Destiny Sanchez was out there at Men's Basketball Media Day on Monday.
Number one is have a plan, right? Have a plan in everything we do. The classroom, to their meals, to their tutoring, to their basketball, to their workouts, to their individual workouts, to watching tape. And you give the guys an understanding of what it's going to take on a daily basis to get where we want to go.
Compete, play hard, and just play hard. It don't matter if you mess up, because coach is going to let us hoop. He just wants us to just give it 100%.
Pack the BJC and just watch. You're not going to watch a boring style of basketball. You're going to watch real fun style of basketball and watch us win.
We're going to play really hard. We're going to be intense with our approach. We're not going to back down from anybody, and that's part of competition. That's so enjoyable, so fun. But you better have an edge at this level to compete, and we got to make sure we work on that every day.
Man, I can't wait to watch the Nittany Lion basketball team this year. Coach Rhodes is going to do a great job with that program. The Penn State Coaches Show coming up tomorrow night. More coverage of Penn State football. Head coach James Franklin, Carolyn Keeger, we just heard from her moments ago. Women's basketball head coach approaching their season from the Field Burger and Tap. That's tomorrow at 6 o'clock, a part of our game week schedule and our game week-long coverage of Penn State football, leading in to what is a very busy day on Saturday. You're watching the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show here tonight. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments section. Reply to our tweets on X as well. Wherever you may be, let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to do the same with our Unrivaled post-game show, which wraps up our game day coverage coming up on Saturday from Beaver Stadium. If you're going to the game on Saturday, make sure you get your game program. They're available at all Penn State bookstore locations and select concession stands. That program is one of the best in college football. It's been fun to go through that, read some of the great stories. Tyler Millen, who works with our team here, has written some great stories all year long, so you can get exclusive coverage of the Nittany Lions right there. It is Military Appreciation Day, and once again, these hats available thanks to Fanatics. Go to gopsusports.com. The team's going to be wearing these camouflage hats on the sideline. Well, maybe it depends on the weather, but you can, again, get this apparel to match the team, match the players, match the coaches, match everyone. And this is exclusive apparel available to you, the fans. Go to gopsusports.com for more and get your merchandise so that way you can match the team on game day at Beaver Stadium. Just a gorgeous night here in Happy Valley. There's a look as the sun sets here in Happy Valley. Penn State and Indiana coming up. CBS noon, night vision at Beaver Stadium. CBS noon. Man, we had another great show here tonight. Our thanks again, head coach James Franklin, Alex Falcon, Zane Durant, Jason Kabinda, and great work by Alyssa and Destiny covering those media days earlier this week for Penn State basketball. But football is on the horizon at noon on Saturday, the Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers. I'm Brian Tripp saying so long from the Lasch patio tonight. Thanks again for tuning in to the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show.